After being swept in the Orlando bubble, things were looking pretty bleak for the Philadelphia 76ers. Even though Ben Simmons didn't even play in that series, several other factors would temporarily change the city of brotherly love to a dystopia of malice. Al Horford's albatross of a contract looked untradeable, Brett Brown was allergic to making adjustments, and Carson Wentz refused to stop throwing interceptions. But in just one offseason, the arrival of Daryl Morey appears to have turned things around. Al Horford was transformed into a much better positional fit in Danny Green without sacrificing significant draft capital. This not only improved the spacing on the floor, but allowed Tobias Harris to play his natural position at the 4. On top of this, the 76ers trade Josh Richardson for one of the best shooters in the league in Steph Curry, which would help the spacing of the team even more. This probably goes without saying, but if your two franchise cornerstones aren't the greatest of shooters, it really helps to surround them with great spacing. And in actuality, that's exactly what the 76ers set out to do in the offseason. And when you combine great spacing with a comfortable Tobias Harris, and a healthy and motivated Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons doing his natural thing, and a better coach, you're bound to be a darn good team. In this video, we'll discuss what's made the 76ers so successful thus far, whether this play is sustainable, and where they currently rank among the top teams in the Eastern Conference. But before we begin, be sure to leave a like on this video, as it only takes a second of your time but makes a massive difference. And if you enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to the channel. The center of the 76ers' success obviously has to be Joel Embiid, who's having an MVP caliber season. When it comes to Embiid, talent was never the question. Rather, the questions arose whether he was going to be healthy and how good of a playing shape that he actually was. But it's safe to say that he's in solid physical shape and that he's available to play for this team. Embiid is putting up a monstrous 28 points and 11 rebounds per game on shooting splits of 54% from the field, 40% from the three-point line, and 81% from the free throw line, with an overall true shooting percentage of 67%. And oh yeah, did I mention the fact that he's shooting 58.7% from mid-range at the time of this recording? And if you didn't know, that is a higher percentage of what Kevin Durant is shooting from mid-range this season. The amount of fouls that Joel Embiid draws through pump fakes, rip-throughs, and just defenders just hacking him because they can't stop him at the post makes him such an unstoppable offensive force, as he's taking 11 free throw attempts per game. Embiid is such a great player in his own right, but it's safe to assume that the offseason additions and subtractions have played a role in his success as well. Despite the fact that Al Horford did have a set shot and can catch and shoot threes at a decent clip, he and Embiid were just not a great pairing. Horford wasn't this nimble power forward that could chase 3s and 4s across the perimeter and catch and shoot 3s at a high clip. He was a 5 in the modern NBA, and his forced inclusion into the Sixers starting 5 made the spacing so wonky and forced Tobias Harris to play out of position. But with better spacing, teams can't just gang up on Joel Embiid in the paint, since they have to respect the three-point shooters in Steph Curry, Tobias Harris, and Danny Green, and therefore that makes just operating in the post easier. The next player I want to spotlight is Tobias Harris, and boy does he look confident out there. He's playing under the coach in which he had his best statistical season before his trade to Philadelphia. As I alluded to earlier, he's playing his natural position at the 4. This is obviously advantageous because at the power forward position, it could be very top heavy and shallow at both ends of the floor for the opposing team. So that means that he's getting a favorable matchup on both ends of the floor. There being better spacing also means that Tobias Harris has more room to operate in isolation or just trying to get to the rim if need be. But the most important aspect of Tobias' game thus far has to be his efficiency, as he's shooting an impressive 51% from the field and 47% from 3 on 4.6 attempts per game. The last player I want to spotlight is Ben Simmons, and the reason I want to do this is because I think his contribution is a little downplayed because he doesn't stretch the floor for the 76ers. But well, if you have someone who's 6'10", is an elite defender, and is someone who's an elite passer, you have to acknowledge the fact that he's one of the key reasons as to why the 76ers have been successful as they've been thus far. I could talk about Steph Curry, Shake Milton, Tyrese Maxey, Korkmaz, and other contributors on this team, but for the sake of time, we'll just acknowledge them as being key contributors as to the 76ers' success. But to move on, let's get into the important questions regarding this team. For one, is this success sustainable? And secondly, where do the 76ers actually stack up with the better teams in the Eastern Conference? Well, as of today, I do think that this level of play is sustainable from the 76ers based off the simple fact that there isn't some statistical aberration that's propelling them thus far. They're 5th in defensive rating, but I fully expect that to keep up based off the personnel on the roster. And also, the 76ers are only 12th in offensive rating. Steph Curry is shooting 50% from 3 this year, but you'd only expect that to taper down a little to around 43 to 45% because that's his typical shooting range from 3. Tobias Harris has shot 47% from 3 thus far, but I only expect that to taper down to around 41 to even 40%, given the fact that that's his normal clip from 3 outside of last season. The point I'm trying to establish here is the fact that the 76ers' success hasn't been a result of some unsustainable shooting spree like the Phoenix Suns did at the start of last season. As long as Philly isn't a victim of injuries or health and safety protocol, this level of play should be sustainable. But then, there's still the second question that I alluded to earlier. Where do the 76ers rank among the top tier teams in the Eastern Conference? Well, this is going to sound like a cop-out, but I'd say that it's a little too early to tell. Having Joel Embiid is going to be a matchup nightmare for a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference, but I'd still say that there are still teams trying to figure things out, or we haven't seen the best of respective teams. For example, the Nets are still trying to acclimate the big three together, and there's still moves to be made in the buyout market and with their disabled player exception. As for the Celtics, we still haven't seen a fully healthy Kemba Walker with the duo of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who have been amazing thus far this season. The Pacers have dealt with some injuries in TJ Warren and Domantas Sabonis, and the Miami Heat's season has been complicated by health and safety protocol. And yeah, the Milwaukee Bucks are good, but they can still be better than they are right now. So overall, the Philadelphia 76ers have been great this season, and I do think that their play is sustainable. So we're just going to have to wait and see how good the teams stack up near the end of the season in the Eastern Conference to get a better gauge of where the 76ers stack up against those respective teams. But that's it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a like, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned.